then fair is fair. Open it wide for everybody. You know, like, why are we focusing on one thing? Everybody's had the same opportunity. I'm not going to, I will not support, you know, just doing one. If you want to have another public meeting for the whole plan, that's different. But to focus on just one, I mean, I can bring my special interest too. Somebody else can bring theirs. You know, it's not right to do it that way. It's not fair.
Well, next week it will be an open meeting for people to deal with, so I don't know whether you have deputations or not, but it doesn't stop somebody from trying to make some kind of a change if they can or not. Just exactly how we're going to deal with it, I can't honestly answer. Councillor Oliver.
Mr. Chair, I don't know whether this will help at all or not, but I think Councillor Height has raised a good point, as did the delegation, as did Councillor Black. So I wonder if we could ask staff to consider arranging another special meeting of council during the day, just not necessarily all day, but at the very least perhaps a half day, which would be considered a public meeting of council, to consider some of these other perhaps more outstanding issues still. Not just one issue alone, Councillor, I agree with you, but that is an important one that obviously for some people needs to be resolved.
What time are you suggesting that? I'm sorry,
I would suggest a 1 o'clock start on whatever day between now and, if possible, the 20th, that could be done.
Well, we can try for the 20th and we'll see what happens. So you want to make that a motion that we...
Well, any day between now and the 20th, if possible.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion here. Councillor Brunton.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not opposed to that, but I wonder if planning have to advertise it for the public. Is there an advertising period involved, Mary or Chris?
All special meetings are supposed to be advertised. Well, we didn't with the one that we just had, the council and committee. What we did was we sent out notice to everyone that was on our circulation list through email. But we did not advertise that one in the paper, that sort of thing. It wasn't considered to be the formal, under the statutory requirements, public meeting. That one we definitely need to advertise the month before and for 2 weeks consecutive. So to have a special meeting of council, I think we can go ahead with that again, put it on our website, put it in our emails and on our Facebook page, and have that special meeting. But eventually we do have to have one that has to have the full public notice.
I realize that, but I'm just wondering, like, two things here to address Councillor Height's concerns. He wants to have all the hamlets notified and available to speak, I assume. And then, is Mr. Rowe coming back next month or Tuesday, or is he going to be pushed into that group? How are we going to deal with that? Well, I think he's already under the understanding he's coming back next Tuesday. That's my... Hey?
1 o'clock sounds good to me.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, so are you saying we can have another go-around, like Councillor Oliver said, before the 20th, what's it? Without any great advertising period?
Yes, we've already had one statutory meeting at the very start of this whole process, and another statutory meeting at the end will address the Planning Act requirements. But your question about whether Mr. Rowe should come back to a special meeting or sometime before the 20th, maybe council would consider starting early on the 20th and dealing with those giving us direction at that point. Or yes, we could try to do something next week, but I don't know how we get notice to everyone in the hamlet. That's the problem, is the only way to do that is to put it in newspapers, and at least a couple of weeks before your meeting is only proper. So if you're wanting that broad of a notice out, then we do have to do papers and delay it, and I would respectfully suggest we won't be back at that till the end of September. That's what we'll post.
I think that Councillor Oliver has said that 1 o'clock on the 20th, if possible. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
Mr. Chair, my motion was on any day that works for staff between this evening and June the 20th.
Okay.
Starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that it be a meeting of council and committee. which I think might help a little bit in terms of the public notice issue.
Okay, that
Maybe we
answers
do it
it.
on the Monday and then continue on with the council on the 20th? Is that a possibility? Or is that too much? My question is to staff on that.
I did have a personal appointment on the 19th, but this is important enough that I will miss that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, then that, on the other hand, then when is Mr. Rowe coming back? Next Tuesday, or is he pushed into that meeting?
He's coming back next Monday as far as I'm concerned, so.
Tuesday.
Well, I thought we were talking about the Monday rather than the whatever the Monday is, yes?
That's what I thought.
Isn't that the 19th, where the 20th is the council meeting?
That's correct.
Yes. Councillor Height.
Well, hold it.
Sorry,
So,
Brunton?
so Mr. Rowe will be here next Tuesday. Am I correct?
No, well, I can book it to come, but theoretically, we're going to have a committee meeting again on the 19th or the 20th, whatever we decide that's going to happen. But theoretically, he can come on the 19th, and we can deal with what he has left.
Well, okay, I just want to get it straight, that's all.
Yeah, well, that's fine, I can understand that.
Yeah.
As it is, we are going to have an early start on the 20th at 2 o'clock, so we wouldn't give us a whole lot of time. So it's certainly much better to do it on the Monday. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think I just heard Mr. Rowe shout from the gallery that he would be prepared to be present on the 19th at this special afternoon meeting to be part of the discussion that we'll have. So
That is correct.
that might be better than trying to shoehorn him in next Tuesday.
Sorry, Councillor Height, I missed you. Sorry.
No problem, Mr. Chair. What is with the imposed June 20th date? Are we going to miss some grant funding opportunity here? Are we going to get fined if we don't have it in by the 20th? We can't give the public enough notice? We can't put it in the paper? I heard the last one was an email out. I didn't get the email myself, but we're on council. We're kind of in the dark sometimes. But I don't see anything wrong with advertising for a meeting on any day, not necessarily to have it in by June 20th, this self-imposed deadline. Why are we rushing around? Right? You know what happens when we rush around? We implement something and then the phone calls start. Right? It's a 5-year plan. And we got to have it done immediately for some reason now. We can't even take the time to go over the boundaries and look at some other things and ask for our public people to come and speak. All right? I don't care when we do it. And it doesn't have to be by the 20th, Mr. Chair.
Well, we still have a motion on the floor. I guess we'll deal with it about a meeting on the committee meeting on the 19th, starting at 1 o'clock. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. So it's going on the 19th. Sorry, go ahead.
Sir Rowe's deputation done?
Mr. Rowe, he's coming back on the
Yeah,
19th.
today. He's done right now? Today?
Yeah,
Well, in that case, could I move a motion? Based on his first request, just to get this one off the table. And I have no problem with his request for the expansion of the forest bill. Okay, so I would like to move that motion that committee allows the expansion of the Forestville boundary as requested by Mr. Rowe.
Okay.
Then that one's off.
Questions or not? All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. We're moving on. 5-year official plan review. Do we still need to do that today, or do we want to go through this partly, or wait till Monday? I guess I'll ask staff.
Mr. Chair, we do have answers to some of the deliberations, the questions that we were left with on May the 18th.
Okay.
And we also have some other submissions from other publics. So
Go ahead.
Given the time and the other agenda, and given that this new meeting has been scheduled, I think I'm going to leave that up to council how they want to deal with that.
Do you want to deal with part of that now, or do you want to leave it till next Monday? It's your choice. Councillor Wells.
how long they guess they would be having this evening. So because if it's a long, we have to figure out, at their special meeting that we're having only half a day, we have to figure out whether we have enough time.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, it's a matter of how many questions council has tonight on what's in the report. We have put out the questions that we had. We've changed some policies, as you've seen in the highlights of the attachment to the report. So depending upon how many questions you have, I don't intend to go through it line by line and do a lot of details.
Go ahead, Councillor Wells. Okay. Till 8 o'clock, and we may have to finish it on the 19th. Is that possible? Okay. Go ahead. Staff.
Through the chair, this staff report is to bring forward to you the comments that we've received from the consultation that was carried out on the first draft presented to you in April. We did meet with several council committees, with council itself at the May 18th meeting, as we've mentioned, with the Chambers of Commerce and Boards of Trade. We also met with various members of our staff interdepartmental team, and they have all put forward various positive comments that we were able to incorporate into the plan for the most part. There are some things that we couldn't do much with. But what's in front of you then are two tables on page 2, and then the second one with the public comments is, it starts in the middle of page 12 of the report. So I think, Mr. Chair, I'd like to leave it open to questions on those various points that are in those tables rather than trying to cover each of them. And you can see that I've attached to this as well any of the submissions that I had received from the public, and also attached the draft amendment, so the track 2 version.
Quite a few. So where are we starting? What page are we on, or where are we? I guess I can't seem to find where I need to go. Councillor Oliver.
I'll get us started if you're willing.
Go ahead.
I did have one that
What page are you on?
I'm on page 28 of our agenda, which is page 8 of the staff report.
Okay.
And more particularly, it's dealing with policies in the shoreline area. And I see we were in section 4.3.2.2.G talking about the replacement of an existing building and limiting such to the original usable floor area. And I did send an email, Mr. Chair, to staff and CC to members of council asking about the possibility of another wording there rather than usable floor area, because it seems to me once we get our emergency flood response plan in place, which will deal with evacuating people as necessary in safe locations in these resort lakeshore communities, that what should be our primary concern is the footprint of buildings rather than the usable floor area, which could be defined as both stories if they happen to be a two-story building or proposing a two-story building. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a recommendation that section 4.3.2.2G, I believe it's the second sentence, read as follows. And it is a slight variation from what's in the page 28 or page 8. And that would simply be that acceptable replacement shall not result in an increase in the original building footprint area of the building or structure, or alter the original use or affect shoreline processes. So what that would do, Mr. Chairman, I think is because elsewhere in the OP amendments we've allowed for the possibility of redevelopment or a reconstruction of existing buildings within our shoreline communities, and I think this change in wording would just allow that to be a somewhat more flexible than limiting it to the existing usable floor Yes, usable floor area, which defines as all floor areas. So that's my recommendation.
Okay. Making that a motion, Councillor Columbus.
So, Councillor Oliver, what you're saying is you can have a second story, but you can't have a greater footprint. Was that right?
That would be, yes, that would be the intent of the change.
Okay.
I hope.
Yep, thanks.
Further from anyone? Councillor Brunton and Councillor Black. Microphone.
They've changed to me it says 9.29 square meters halfway down that page, but on the left-hand column it still refers to the stairway as 929 meters. Shouldn't that be 9.29 meters, or am I missing something there?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, the left column is the question that was asked, and it was that this 929 must be incorrect. So on the left
okay.
side, we
I
would
got
say
you.
that.
I got that, yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
What does staff have to say about the recommendation on the floor?
We can support the recommendation.
You cannot support it?
We can.
You can support it?
Yes.
Okay. So would this see a lot more two-story development down in Turkey Point? Or would it allow more two-story development in Turkey Point?
The zoning bylaw at this point in the resort areas allows a building height of 9 meters, which accommodates 2 stories. So whether you have this policy or not, you might end up with that height anyways.
Okay, so it's already someplace else in the bylaw under the maximum height. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to planning. The M&R guide and basically the forthcoming policy from the Conservation Authority will allow you to increase your foundation area. I think it's pretty much allowed everywhere in Ontario by 500 meters squared. So if you have this in our official plan, will all of those applications be approved by the Conservation Authority, and when they come to Norfolk, they will be refused?
Through the chair, I'm just not sure. I spoke with someone at the Conservation Authority today, and I thought I understood it was something smaller than that. So Councillor Height has kind of thrown me with that number of 500 square meters. It seems pretty large. But despite that, when someone wants to do something that's not within the provisions of the zoning bylaw, they're speaking with staff and deciding whether or not they need to do an application. That's separate from the Conservation Authority permit process, and that process would, of course, move forward as well. So they're both independent, but yes, at times they do get linked. So I'm trying to answer your question, Mr. Councillor Height, but I think I've forgotten part of it.
Okay, it's 500 square meters you're allowed as an addition. There's also a major addition which allows you to go over the 500 square feet, and you're also allowed a 50% increase, or the 500 square feet, whatever is greater. Okay, and that's M&R's policy. So if we limit it here, this is more restrictive than the Conservation Authority limits. That means somebody who over at Turkey Point who owns an 800 square foot cottage can never build out, or they have to jump through an official plan amendment? Right?
Just one at a time, please. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor
Councillor
Brunton,
Height
you
has
wanna add
raised a good
something?
point. I'm going to suggest, if I still can do it, a wording change to my motion.
Okay.
And that simply would be that it would be limited to the original usable floor area, the original building footprint area, or a minor addition thereto. In other words, a minor could be up to the 50% that Councillor Height is talking about. Well, you mean the definition of minor?
It's difficult. I thought the 150 or whatever, one and a half times your footprint was over and above what you were allowed. It had to be less than the 150, not? Am I wrong?
There's a major addition that is in the M&R Tech Guide. So there's replacement, which basically means tear your building down and build it, and there is no limit on the foundation area at that level because it is full redevelopment. And the major addition is anything over the 50% of your original foundation area or over the 500 square feet. A minor addition is 50% of the foundation area or less, or 500 square feet with the capacity of 2 additions. So this is going to open up a whole tangle of red tape. What do we have in there now? Because I don't think we have anything that even comes close to this restriction in there now.
We're checking it out. I don't think we're going to get very much accomplished, and it's going to take some time to deal with that. So I don't think we should be holding it down, or I guess not putting this forward. We could work on this for another year and still not get anywhere. Go ahead.
Through the chair, I've looked at that section F, and it says the replacement of an existing building or structure may be permitted provided the hazard has been adequately addressed through the use of accepted engineering and resource management practices. Acceptable replacement shall not result in an increase in the original usable floor area of the building or structure, or alter the original use or affect shoreline processes. So that's currently what we have. There isn't any changes proposed to that other than what's been brought forward by Councillor Oliver tonight.
So what you're talking about, Councillor Oliver, does that change that? So theoretically, what you're saying, you're stuck with what the footprint is.
Well, Mr. Chair, the wording that was in the report on page 28 or page 8 that staff were proposing would be added. Using the definition of usable floor area, it would not allow any expansion on any level to an existing cottage other than replacing exactly what's there, like for like. So the reason why I proposed my change, Mr. Chair, would be to allow for a second story to be built, provided the original footprint of the cottage was not increased. Councillor Height has raised a very good point. If provincial guidelines through M&R and LPRCA allow for an expansion of a foundation, then maybe I'm being overly restrictive in what I'm suggesting, and I'm open to further change. But my intent in putting this recommendation forward was to allow for a building to go up in height, even if it couldn't go out in area. And so the intent was good. Whether I'm making life more difficult for people or not, I guess I stand to be corrected, and wasn't my intent, of course, but I do feel we need to change from what's being proposed in the document now, that's for sure.
Councillor Brunton.
Well, it seems to me, Mr. Chairman, and the issue was, and we did deal with this at one point, we allowed the original footprint up to a maximum increase of 500 square feet. Yeah, but no restriction going up. And most of the time that bottom level was changed to flood restrictions, wave uprush or whatever. So I think we want the 500 square feet plus the addition to go up. And it's usually the cottage sits on the ground and the 500 square feet addition goes out, but it's all non-habitable space, I think. That's what it ends up at. That's the one we approved in Port Dover, 500 square foot addition with an addition upstairs. So we want both, the footprint increase and the no restriction on the upstairs. But the 500 square feet on the footprint, Councillor Oliver, would also be restricted by your side yards and rear yards and all that, would it not?
Go ahead, Jim.
Solution that might at least help us to go forward a little bit further. and that would be if my wording was such that acceptable replacement shall not result in an increase of more than 500 square feet to the original building foundation. Footprint.
Okay. If we can.
Foundation area, or footprint area, I don't care which, foundation area is better. So what that does, Mr. Chairman, it removes the usable floor area as the criterion, because that would have prohibited going up at all, and it would allow at least a minor addition in the footprint or foundation size of up to 500 square feet, which it sounds like would be acceptable to the Conservation Authority and provincial guidelines. Yeah, that's correct.
Are we okay now? Do we have something that we can deal with? We have a number of actually staff reports that we do have to get at tonight, so I'm not so sure how much. We can probably go to 8 o'clock, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and perhaps 6 that we have to deal with tonight. So we will have to keep working at it. Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't like to see this moving forward just yet, because there's a lot of stuff that the council doesn't have in front of us right now as far as this goes. I think it's pretty important to get this right. I think I'd rather pass this over to our next meeting if at all possible. I know I have a list of stuff here, so if you guys brought pillows, I'm in. But we could skip now and do the full day thing. Right.
Well, does anybody have a problem with what Councillor Oliver has said that we can at least deal with for now, and we will deal with the other ones, I guess. I don't know how long it'll take. Maybe we can do a few more. Can we get those done in an hour? I hope so. Councillor Oliver, have you changed what you were originally
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear if the Deputy Clerk has something, has made that change. But this one I still personally would like to see us deal with. It may not be satisfactory as far as we can go, and that's not to say we can't change it further at a future date special meeting. Okay. So I'm requesting that we at least deal with this one recommendation once we hear it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to committee. And that section 4.3.2.2G be amended to read, acceptable replacement shall not result in an increase of more than 500 square feet to the original building foundation area of the building or structure, or alter the original use or affect shoreline processes.
That's it? Any questions or comments or further comments around anyone? All those in favor? That is carried. Opposed? 1. We're not doing it individually. Anyway, well, is there a couple more that we can talk about and that you have, so we can try and get some of this out of the way for next Monday? Where are we at next? Councillor Columbus.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question with respect to this.
What page are you on?
Page 26. Rural area, it's the second block down on that page. And it talks about, are we moving towards this rural residential for a single family home in the country? Is that what we're talking about here? Or are we still keeping a 1 acre lot in the country, in the rural area, as zoned agricultural?
Are you talking page 21 on the bottom or on the top?
Page 26.
On the bottom?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
To you, Mr. Chair, that's an issue for the community structure, where the county is divided into urban areas, hamlet areas, and is proposed a rural area. Within that rural area, there are a number of land use designations, including agriculture, and within that agriculture designation, we are adding a policy that the county may establish a specific zone for rural residential lots. So we haven't spelled that out in terms of what the size of those lots are. That would be an issue that will be dealt with when the county looks at the implementing zoning bylaw for the official plan amendments.
Okay, so if somebody has a 1 or 2 acre lot in the country right now, the tag on that will still be agricultural, right? Is that what you're saying?
The land use designation would remain as agriculture.
Okay. And the rest of it's coming sometime down the road.
The rezonings, if that happens, yeah, it will be down the road.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Staff, anything you want to bring forward else?
I don't think at this time, if we're going to have the other meeting, and I know of the agenda that you've got for tonight, so...
Do you want to leave it till then? That's fine. Okay, thank you very much. I guess we will move on then to staff reports. Staff report HS 17-9, the Journey Together, one-time capacity funding, budget amendment. Who's got this one? Health and Social Services. Sorry? Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As part of the province of Ontario, the Journey Together, Ontario's commitment to reconciliation with the Indigenous people, the Ministry of Education has announced funding grants to create community plans to expand and support Indigenous-led programming in childcare and early learning programs. This report is to accept the $50,000 and approve the budget amendment that was granted to Haltom and Norfolk.
Councillor Black.
I'd like to move the recommendation in the report.
Okay, just hang on a second until I find it. 355. No, just too many things at one time. Okay. Questions for staff? If not, Councillor Black has moved that staff report HS 17-09, the Journey Together, one-time capacity funding, be received as information, and that Council accepts the additional one-time funding in the amount of $50,000 from the Ministry of Education, and further that the approved 2017 levy-supported operating budget be amended to include $50,000 to be used for the indigenous planning for childcare and early learning in Haldimand and Norfolk counties, with funding to be provided 100% from the Ministry of Education. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to staff report PH 1746, award of contract for PWE-1736 Queensway asphalt resurfacing. Lee.
Through the chairman to council, in front of you is the report for the award for the Queensway West asphalt resurfacing. We followed the purchasing policy and one response was received. The prices that were included in it were underneath the what our engineering estimate was for the work, and they were in line with all of the other projects where we've received multiple tenders. Therefore, we felt that this is fair. We have received funding for this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have Wells, Height, and Black.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm going to move the recommendation, and I only have one question. And that question is, 6 companies took out tenders and only 1 response was received. And I know that our staff are not clairvoyants, but did any of them give you any indication as to why they did not respond?
Through the chairman to council, they didn't provide us with any reasons why they did not respond.
Seemed like a pretty good contract. I was just surprised. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comment's similar to Councillor Wells. It's not like Public Works to only get 1 quote back. It must have been something to do with the funding or something, because it closed May 23rd and everyone was away for the long weekend or something. That's all I can explain. It's cheap for us, but...
Through the chairman to council, we do find that depending on what else is closing at the same time, sometimes we have a hard time getting bids, and we have no way of knowing what other projects are out there as well. We can't speak to it. Given the price that we have seen from our other bids, we're very satisfied that this is an excellent price that we're receiving for the year, so we're not hesitating to recommend that it go forward. If it was substantially higher than we'd seen on our other projects, we likely would have recommended that it be retendered.
Black and Brunton.
I can come up with my own possible answer, and maybe all the other ones backed off knowing that Dufferin's a block away. So they're not very, they're only on Greg Drive, so very close.
Councillor Brunton?
I was going to comment, Dufferin owned the asphalt plant in Simcoe. That makes it pretty easy, so thank you.
No further questions. That staff report PW 1742, award of contract PWR 17-45, longitude roadway pavement markings be received as information. That the General Manager of Public Works and Environmental Services be authorized. I hope I have the right one. No, I don't. One before that, 38, sorry. All of a sudden it didn't make sense.
It makes sense to us.
Well, good for you. Okay, let's try this again. I read it different the last time. That staff report PW 17-46 contract PWE 1736 Queensway West asphalt resurfacing. I hope I have that one right now. Be received as information. And that a bylaw be prepared authorizing the mayor and clerk of council services to execute a contract with the firm of Dufferin Construction Company for the contract of PWE 17-36 in the amount of $629,951.20, excluding taxes, and further that the funding from the Queensway asphalt resurfacing project be provided as outlined in the report noted below. All those in favor? That is carried. Now let's try the next one. Staff report PW award of contract PWR 1745 longitude road pavement markings. Okay.
Through the chairman to council, the report before you is before you this evening as we issued it as a 3-year contract, and as such the aggregate amount over 3 years exceeds the staff threshold. For award, we've received excellent pricing. We received 4 bids, and we are recommending the award as indicated to the numbered company in the report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Wells.
Chair, could I ask that? Did this company work for us before? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, they have.
And we were very satisfied with their work?
We were satisfied with their work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You moving that again? Thank you. Okay. Further? Councillor Sonnenberg.
You to Lee. Lee, could I put in a special request for a certain section of road to be done? I've had complaints from people north of Bealton on Villanova Road. They would like the lines marked on that particular stretch of road.
Certainly. I can make a note and have staff review it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Wells has moved. Is there any other comments? If not, the staff report PW 17-42, award of contract PWR 1745, longitude roadway pavement markings be received as information, and that the General Manager of Public Works and Environment Services be authorized to execute a contract with 2228977 Ontario Inc. Run and Maintenance, is that, hope that's correct, for request for tender PWR-45 longitude road pavement markings for the 3-year term at a cost of .1398 per painted meter in 2007 with a 2% price increase for the next contract year. Further questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to combined EMS fire hall in St. Williams. I missed another one? Come on, somebody's got a mark beside it. I'm sorry, I got to go back. Page 45, that's the one I was at before, wasn't I? Hang on, I'll find it. Okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit so I don't, okay, go ahead. Staff report, PW, award of contract, RFP, PWE 1771, engineering services for Simcoe 2018 reconstruction projects. I didn't really want that to happen, but anyway, go ahead.
Through the chairman to council, before you is the award report. As council is aware, during the budget process, we approved the engineering to be done for potential construction for these projects in 2018. As such, we issued a request for proposal to provide all of the engineering services for all of these projects together, and we had 2 firms submit the RFPs. They have been reviewed, and we are recommending award to GHD Limited in the amount of $325,415, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Oliver, Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably all of us are wondering, Lee, I have 2 quick questions. It was interesting to me, 19 were picked up and only 2 chose to submit. Maybe you have an explanation of that for us. And secondly, GHD Limited was not an engineering firm's name that I recognized. Have they worked for us before? And if not, are you still quite satisfied they'll do a good job?
Through the chairman to council, yes, they have worked for us before, probably under a different combination of letters. They are yet again another firm that has been constantly changing names as they've been amalgamating and buying other companies or being bought by companies. So the core group of people is a group of people that we've worked with quite successfully in the past. And sorry, and with respect to why we didn't see so many bids, that's a hard thing. Many of the people that picked up are sub-consultants for these, and they like to have their own set of documents to review, and then in fact go around and shop their services to some of the other larger firms. So,
Councillor Black.
Move the recommendation in the report.
Okay. Further, Councillor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Columbus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lee, $325,000 is quite a whack of money for these 3 projects. And do we not have any staff at Public Works that can do some of this work? Do the engineering? Like, why are we going out so much now with consultants, engineering consultants, rather than our own staff?
Through the chairman to council, as we had explained previously, we don't have a fully detailed engineering design team in-house, and these require substantial work submissions to the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change. We don't have the staffing or the budget money to have those sorts of people on staff on a full-time basis. We advised this prior to the budget, I believe in 2017, or for the 2017. We reviewed it, and this was actually a more economical way of undertaking these projects. In addition, grouping them together, we saw a significant reduction in our engineering costs.
I just thought for $325,000, we could probably hire 2 full-time civil engineers to do the same work and pay them year-round. That was my thinking. Thanks.
Further from anyone? If not, Councillor Black has moved that staff report PW 17-45, award of contract RFP PWE 17-71 engineering services for Simcoe 2018 reconstruction project be received as information, and that a bylaw be prepared authorize the mayor and clerk manager of council service to execute a contract with the firm of GHD Limited for contract RFP PWE 17-71 excuse me, in the amount of $325,451 excluding taxes. All those in favor? That is carried. Now, combined EMS fire hall in St. Williams. Fire chief or whoever.
Through the chair, Fire Chief Terry Dix will be introducing the report, but I just wanted to acknowledge we have Chief Sarah Townsend from our EMS staff here as well, and she worked with partners with Chief Dix putting this report together.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back in council deliberations in 2017, we presented the idea, once we established the need for Station 10, to possibly combine fire and EMS in one facility, and council gave direction to provide a report and update in June of this year. So we're here tonight that through the Chief of EMS, myself, our staff, and through our colleagues in planning and purchasing and zoning, building, we have met several times over the many months since capital budgeting, and can offer that our station location studies and our response areas have been looked at. And we agree from the fire and EMS side that anything within the hamlet of St. Williams would be ideal for both services. So we've in preliminary reviews, have come down to about 4 locations that could possibly benefit where these locations would be. And we're asking council tonight to allow us to go forward for an expression of interest to see what is out in the hamlet of St. Williams. And through myself or Chief Townsend, would be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Black.
On the location, like you have more than one location option that you have in mind?
Through Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, how many would that be?
Through Mr. Chairman, we have the existing site of the fire station and 3 other possible locations right now.
Okay, and would the best one be, have you figured out all the times for each one of them, what the best time would be, best location?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, correct. That's exactly what we did of those locations. Would they fit in that service delivery pattern?
Okay. All right. Well, I would move the recommendation in the report and just say that I think it's the best idea we've had yet is to try and finally combine ambulance and fire. We should have done this right at the very beginning of amalgamation.
Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I don't have any problem supporting the recommendation. My only question was, we talked at one time about whether or not St. Williams was the center for the fire station, and I guess my question to the chief is, you're quite happy if we decide to do it there, that's a good location?
Through Mr. Chairman, that's correct. Any of these locations now in the hamlet are sufficient and would serve a purpose.
Okay.
Councillor Brunton.
Mr. Chairman, just a question to the chief. When you're looking at that, is there any possibility that any of these locations can combine Port Rowan and St. Williams?
Through Mr. Chairman, if you're considering fire combining Station 9 and Station 10, we did look at that opportunity.
And?
We did not look at that opportunity. We looked at the need for Station 10.
I misunderstood that. Well, in this process, will we look at the EMS station is the one on 59? Correct?
That is correct.
So are we going to look at, that's all I'm asking, like would we look at a combination for all of them? Where's your next closest EMS from 59?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Langton would be the next closest.
So would it be out of the question to ask to consider that, like combining Port Rowan, St. Williams, and the EMS station on 59? Is one of these locations a possibility?
Through you, Mr. Chair, from an EMS standpoint, it will be one base. So we'd be moving the Port Rowan base into this combined base from an EMS standpoint.
So the EMS base is going to cover everything for both the fire in both locations, then, you're telling me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it will cover both St. Williams and Port Rowan as it does now, yes. Not Langton. Langton will stay remaining at the fire hall in Langton.
Correct.
And then the Port Rowan station will simply move from 59 into St. Williams and still will cover from Long Point to Turkey Point.
So why can't the fire do the same thing?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that wasn't the direction that we were given. We established the need for the St. Williams Fire Station.
I'm not questioning what the decision we made. I'm just saying if you're going to look at things, is that not a practical thing to look at?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, whatever direction council wants to give, we will follow.
Thank you.
Okay, Columbus, Height, and Sonnenberg. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Chief Dix about the infrastructure for the fire, the water situation in particular in the St. Williams area. Would we be using a cistern, or is there an existing cistern at the existing St. Williams Fire Hall?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we did a replacement of the cistern in the St. Williams Fire Hall within the last 2 years. Still a strategic water location for us, so that would not change.
And that is one of the sites that we're looking?
Correct.
Okay. Good. That sounds good to me.
Okay, Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, Langton is already a combined fire and EMS station, and I do think that this is the way of the future to reduce your costs and have synergies between red and blue. Now, in this, the report that is in front of us now, I guess for our EMS station, who looks after the fairground and Houghton area?
Through you, Mr. Chair, right now it's a combination of both bases. Langton has the good access to go across the 12th and down 23 into the southwest corner of our county quite well. They would be covering an extended area if we did move further east into St. Williams.
Okay, and now with this, the EMS being moved over to the east side, that'll cover Turkey Point for you faster?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. So we did look at the numbers of calls that we're doing in the different areas, and we do approximately 10 times more calls in Turkey Point than we do in Long Point. So we're looking for extra coverage there.
Now, my next question would be, I guess, like in the project cost from financial services, it's my understanding that Norfolk County would normally do business plans for these kind of ventures, but I don't see that here because I don't see land disposition. I would imagine that the EMS base on 59 is worth some money, and then there would have to be something done with the place in St. Williams right now, the fire hall, unless there's a plan to keep it. Do you know what those plans are right now with those buildings?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the existing budget that was shown was for us to replace our base on the current land on 59. So yes, if the site is to be moving, that site would be sold, and the benefits would then go back to the county.
Okay, and will you factor that all in the end, like between both your bases? Because I would imagine, like both of you have a hydro bill, a gas bill, if you have gas there, and all of those bills. So there will be a reduction there in your operating costs. Will that be all factored into the budget side of things?
Through the chair, we will be doing that. We've also assessed different sites, Haldeman and Peel, that have combined bases in the past, and so we can actually pull their numbers to give you some actual savings of what they've figured out over the last 5 years.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Councillor Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've always been of the opinion that that area only needs one fire hall, and I think Councillor Brunton is on the right track. I would like to see us investigate the combination of St. Williams and Port Rowan fire halls and make that part of our investigation before we make any final decisions. So I would make that an amendment to the motion that's on the floor, if I could, that we investigate.
We could add it to what is there now.
Yes. That we investigate combining Port Rowan and St. Williams fire halls.
We went through that process once already and it didn't work, so
well, I'm going to try it again.
Okay. Clerk is working on something. Councillor Oliver, I believe you had something.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to be sure I understand. I support what's been talked about around the table, but when I heard Chief Dix make reference to what this request, expressions of interest would be, it's relative to the alternative sites, whereas what I thought I was reading in the report and the recommendation is more for the design build expression of interest. Am I misunderstanding, or which in fact will we be doing if this is approved?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it would be for the sites because we have located 4 possible sites, but until we do an expression of interest, there may be other opportunities in that hamlet that we're not aware of. So we would look at the site first.
Okay, so if I could, Mr. Chair, just at the top of page 2 then, Terry, in the report, that first paragraph is where I guess my confusion came from, where it says staff is requesting council approval to do the EOI for site development options, soliciting information from vendors regarding such things as vendors willing to bid, feasibility, and market availability. Is that all still related to site options and not design build of the building?
That's through Mr. Chairman. It's for the sites that we're looking. Thank you.
Okay, my mistake.
Councillor Brunton.
Another question through you, if I may, to Mr. Dix. Recently I read, I'm not sure where the memo came from, maybe it was the province, where they're looking at changing some regulations or whatever for fire and EMS. Does that have any bearing on this? It was I read it last week on our emails. And
through you, Mr. Chair, to Council, the Ministry of Health released the way forward for ambulance services yesterday, actually. And there's 3 recommendations in there, one of which includes a proposal of working and certified paramedics on fire trucks. We don't believe that applies to the county. It would be a selection process for full-time fire that would put in a bid for the municipality, and it's a pilot program they're running for the next year.
But if it's a pilot and they're happy with what they see, I know a lot of fire departments have EMS right on in staff. I'm wondering, like down the line, is that a possibility for us to have our EMS staff? Like when you get a call out now, lots of times I see fire and EMS at the same site. Am I correct?
Through you, there are specific calls that are sent out that are double dispatched to both police, fire, and ambulance at times. The specifications usually include like an MVC, obviously a structure fire, someone that's trapped, things like that require the special rescue tools that fire has and ambulance does not.
Well, if you just looking at how some of these fire departments operate, I mean, it would make sense to have everything in one vehicle or fire EMS rescue vehicle or whatever at the site. I mean, if it's combined, maybe I don't know, it just sounds to me like it's evolving into a one-stop operation, that's all. So I don't know, I guess I'm looking at it from a overall cost, and you know, we have a lot of fire stations, and finally we got the EMS located in the Waterford Fire Hall, and as Councillor Black said, I can't believe it took 15 years, 20 years to do that, but here we are. It's 2017 and we're starting to accomplish things, so I think it's something we got to look at for sure as far as Councillor Sonnenberg's resolution. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Black has moved that report CSD 17-41 combined fire EMS station in St. Williams to be received as information, and that Council instructs CDS staff to provide an expression of interest for site development options in St. Williams, and that Council instructs CBS staff to proceed with an expression of interest for the site development of, I read that one already, and further that Council approve in principle the merger of capital project budget for Fire Station 10 replacement and EMS Port Rowan base replacement in a combined co-located facility in St. Williams, recognizing that the final approval will be at Council's discretion. And how, okay, sorry. You got that, Councillor? I'm sorry, I should have you read it. Go ahead.
Moved by Councillor Sonnenberg, and further that staff investigate combining St. Williams and Port Rowan fire stations.
Okay, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Height.
So I'm clear, Mr. Chair, are we dealing with 2 separate motions then? And certainly that's my hope.
We can do it that way, I guess. Sorry? Okay, we have to deal with the amendment first. So the amendment's on the floor.
Okay, so it's an amendment to the existing motion.
That's
all right,
correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Height.
Mr. Chair, didn't we deal with this when we moved this forward? So to go back on our decision that was made during our capital budget deliberations in 2017, shouldn't that be a vote of reconsideration? If I recall correctly, we already dealt with the fact of the fire department had to stay, because Noel already got a bazillion calls that month, and he doesn't want to have to go through that all over again. So unless somebody's changed this around on me,
well, I
maybe
know
our
that
deputy clerk can tell us?
There was some talk about the fire doing away with actually St. Williams, and I know that there were a lot of firefighters who were very upset. There's no doubt about that. As far as moving Port Rowan over to St. Williams, I hadn't heard that before, so I think that's something different. So Councillor Sonnenberg and Oliver.
I think we're dealing with this in a little different fashion tonight. Originally, I wanted St. Williams Fire Hall closed.